but down my terms. They talk about community down me, but they could cure us what the homeless or dreaded did or the alcoholics. They were shamed.
What happened to the truth and reconciliation? It's been 4 years since the world was told that the remains of 215 children was discovered in unmarked graves at the former Kamloops Indian Residential School. Hundreds of attacks on churches and millions of tax dollars later being handed out for the claim, and the truth is, to date, not a single body has been found. An important truth that when championed by professionals like Supreme Court judge, lawyers, educators, elected officials, and a few brave journalists, gets us branded as racist residential school deniers, with political forces calling to criminalize our accurate speech, even when evidence points to an old septic field instead of a massacre of missing children. Society is told to shut up and pay up, and trust the tales labeled as oral testimonies instead. But today, a Kamloops band member is breaking the silence. I've verified their identity, which we will be protecting. We've altered their voice, and some facts are omitted to avoid them from facing political persecution too. This report is not about minimizing the harms that some residential school students experience. It's about our history. It's about the truth. It's about how society would call this individual a residential school survivor when this person says residential schools were the better place to be. Don't shoot the messenger. I'm Drea Humphrey, and here is the other side of the story. What can you tell us about your time there and your experiences there?
Well, it seemed to me that a lot of the students were happy to be there. They were away from abusive families, dysfunctional families, alcoholism. So they were happy to be there.
And how were you treated there?
I was treated well.
Is there any priest or nun that you remember anything good or bad about?
Nothing good, though.
No. Anything good about a particular priest or nun, or?
Well, there was Father Noah, and he was a real nice guy.
And he was sort of in charge of a lot to do with the school, I think, right?
At that time, yes, in the 70s.
Mm-hmm. So what about people that you know who went to the school there? Did you hear, through your community, through your circle, prior to this claim, that it was a really, really horrible, abusive school?
Afterwards, yes.
After the claim?
Afterwards. No, before.
Before? And what did you hear?
Some people were scared to go to the boiler room. They said the boiler room, there was an incinerator in there. And that one person found a shoebox. So the figures in it, I guess the shoebox was meant to go into the incinerator. A problem with that story you have, I called BS out because the incinerator is 100 yards away from school. It makes sense that have an incinerator inside the building, then dig throughout the school. It didn't make sense.
So when you're saying you heard this story, it wasn't when you were present in the school. You're talking about years later, more recent.
Yes.
And someone said they saw the box, or they heard somebody else saw the box.
Well, they claimed they saw the box. And they claimed they were scared to go in the boiler room. It's a steam boiler room.
What, and I don't expect you to know the answer to this, of course, but why do you believe that the Kamloops band,
allowed people to believe they had discovered these bodies when they hadn't, and B, has been, somewhat hostile against people who want answers about what is underneath the soil.
I think they made a mistake and they know it.
But why not just say, I made a mistake. We thought these were bodies. They're really just something else.
Well, the discovery of anomalies could mean anything. Yeah, they took it for a while, but because I was, I guess, which to them was probably confirmed one of his suspicions. But yeah, it was too late to take it back, I think.
Yeah. Well, there have been some bands that have, put a shovel in the ground and said, hey, we dug and we didn't find anything. There's one band that says maybe the bodies were moved to somewhere else, but the most of them are saying, I'm glad that they weren't there. There's still many others who haven't dug. There is a word, a phrase that comes out to people, including myself, just for covering the truth on this issue. And others who maybe they're talking about history, like if kids died, most of them would have died from tuberculosis. There is this term, it's called residential school denialism, or you get called a residential school denier when you try to probe into this area. What's your thoughts on that?
I think that's just the state of the concrete. Political correctness. This political correctness. It's what I stage.
The Kamloops band got somewhere between $8 and $12 million at least. I'm not talking donations, or there's another fund as well. So they got millions of dollars after this 215 claim, and they have never excavated. Do you have any opinions on that?
I don't think they should give it that. But give it back or hire some backhoes to start bleeding. Watching the ground penetrating radar. Cross that ice level ground. And I recall back in my community at that same spot, when development began down there for the new Vawa Arbor Heritage Park, tons of soil and dirt were trucked in and dumped there. And that spread leveled off. And in that soil, myself and other workers found pieces of porcelain cups, dishes, forks, other items. I asked the other worker where these came from, except to hunt if you want the truck.
So are you describing then sort of a time when the soil in the apple orchard was altered? And if so, when was that?
1990s. And in order to begin development, these guys do studies, in case something's found. The skull's found, all construction stops. Yeah, what development went ahead, so.
So you're saying that when that development happened to make it look the way it looks now, which obviously isn't exactly how it was many years ago, that soil was brought in, and that soil also had items mixed within it. And so was that soil put on top of the apple orchard?
Yes.
Yeah. And so it's...
I almost seem like he was taken from a landfill and dumped there as a filler.
Interesting. And so you're saying that before that development happened there, you believe that they went ahead and looked what was underneath the soil and never found anything nefarious.
That's my assumption, yes. That's my belief. Well, I heard it on the radio at work, and my first thought was mass graves. What do they do? Line them up and shoot them? It could have been a hole.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
It makes sense. It didn't make sense.
Yeah, it seems...
Why a mass grave?
And then when you found out the location, when you noticed that, hey, this is a location you were familiar with, did you have any other thoughts?
Yeah, that didn't make sense that they'd, well, the original soil was buried beneath the soil that was brought in. All these anomalies were probably from that soil that was brought in.
What's your thoughts on the residential school as a whole, the whole system? Before 2021, or maybe even 10 years ago and earlier, what was the general consensus that maybe your family passed down to you about what that system was like?
Um, well, as I said before, people like being there to get the chance at an education, to get to learn. Oh, to have many resources. Some of them were having drumming lessons and singing lessons. Um, there was gun class, all kinds of real opportunities and escapes. So I thought it was good. It was a good place.
Did you think it's connected to a genocide of your people?
No,
Why did you want to do this interview anonymously?
well, to do decent for compressions.
What do you think those repercussions would be for simply coming out and telling your experience with the Kamloops Indian Residential School?
Oh well, they were not really do defending themselves, but they sure will. They sure like attacking other people. But on my terms. But they talk about community down me, but they could cure us what the homeless or the dreaded did, or the alcoholics. They were shamed. It shouldn't be.
So where do we go from here? What should citizens, politicians, what is the answer? Because there has been a ton of money from taxpayers into these communities to help with these issues. But they're still the band government, and they're in charge, and what they do with that money is what they do with that money. So what would you like to see happen?
Um, I don't take this the wrong way, but I had thought, I know the what's his name must come in and his doze and do a lot of, and we're not. A lot of that is, it's going down somewhere. You know, kind of where Wallace when he's going.
Now, as a member of the band, what are the members told about where the money is going? Is that easily accessible information?
There are been out understand that which bits of information.
Is there anything that you think is important to know that we haven't discussed about residential schools, or about the tensions between people who want to know the truth about these unmarked graves and people who are, hanging on tightly to that truth?
Oh, don't rush to judgment. That'd be a big mistake. As you've noticed in the law of the church, the serving bird gone, or that's done for nothing, in my opinion. There's no call for it, no reason for it. One thing about political correctness say, so we seem to be against religion for some reason. When I was talking about religion and or churchmen, community and family, it seems like the liberals, they want to destroy family. So the way to do that is to attack religion. So Sunris, the native cause, to attack religion. They only really care about the natives. These whatever works for their cause when the burning of the churches. That was a good excuse. Um, so attacking religion was a good excuse to burn the churches, to demonstrate how evil religion is. And that seems to me why the churches were burned there. Not out of caucus, but this excuse. The bloods at 2015 did use the mass graves as an excuse to burn the church was.
Well, I want to thank you so much for your bravery coming forward. Really, this shouldn't be taboo. Not too long ago, it wasn't taboo for you to say the things you are, but here we are in 2025, and it absolutely is. So thank you very much for your bravery.
At Rebel News, we bravely give you the other side of the story on many issues. In this particular issue, there are calls to criminalize my reports for giving you the facts. If you value me and Rebel News sticking our neck out to dig deeper, even though the Kamloops ban won't put a shovel in the ground, please consider being a part of what makes it possible by donating what you can at kamloopsdocumentary.com.